Hello, everyone. I'm the Bodacious Cowboy with my co-host, Christy Knichel. Are you ready for a special edition of the Storytelling Chronicles? We are. Let's go.
Look out! Pop, pop, it's showtime. Showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone tell. Oh, they don't know. Gone tell. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Inglewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues.
Welcome, everyone, to the Storytelling Chronicles. It is Monday, May 13th. We're halfway through the month. Unbelievable. Welcome to the Storytelling Chronicles, Empowering Women into Logistics. I'm your host, Jeff Dickinson. Next to my great co-host, Christy Knichel. Today's episode is made possible by our awesome sponsors. We have Thai Software, Tafts Inc., and also Freight Validate. They're the ones who are making this podcast today possible. How you doing, Christy?
I'm doing great.
Did you have a good weekend?
I did. It was Mother's Day on Sunday, and it was a nice, relaxing weekend, and everyone was helping me out for once.
That's a plus. Did you do anything special?
No, not really. I mean, I bought a lawnmower, if that's special, I guess. That's about it.
I don't know what to say about that.
Hey, you got to do what you need, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think my wife would have been ticked if I got her a lawnmower.
Well, my husband is a stay-at-home dad, so he's been waiting for me to be home from a trip so I could actually go sign the paperwork to get a lawnmower. So that's my life.
Oh my God. All right. I'll try to compose myself. We're thrilled today to have Anne Reinke joining us as a guest today with over 2 decades of experience in transportation and logistics industry, and has held key leadership roles at CSX, United States Department of Transportation, and currently serves as the president and CEO of the Transportation Intermediaries Association. Her extensive expertise and commitment to fostering diversity and inclusion make her insights invaluable as we discuss empowering women in logistics. How are you doing today, Anne? Let's bring her in. Hi, Anne.
Hi, guys. I did not get a lawnmower for my Mother's Day present, and I'm glad about that.
I'm calling up your husband, and I'm going to tell him to get you one.
Listen, my yard looked like a forest, and I was just like, can you just go get one? And it's just, at the end of the day, he still needed me to finalize it, so that's what I did on
I still can't believe that. I'm writing that one down. That's awesome.
Oh, gosh. Well, God bless you. That's exciting. I mean, is it a Toro? Should we not say? I don't know. Anyway.
No, it's not a Toro. It is a zero turn, though. I will say that. It's a Kubota.
That's exciting.
Nice.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
My daughter would love that.
Yeah, my husband literally spent more than he should have out there because I think he just wanted to keep mowing and mowing and mowing, even though it was done. So.
And then he said, "Oh, happy Mother's Day, Christy. Here's the keys."
Well, he asked me if he wanted to teach me to learn how to ride it. And I said, nope. I said, I don't need to on this one. It's all yours. So
God.
I did get some nice flowers to plant. I will say that. I got some nice cards and a couple gift cards. So
okay.
It's nice to step back, right? And
Yes.
get away from work every once in a while.
Yes.
In logistics, that's kind of tough to do.
That's tough. That's right.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So, Christy, why don't you start it off?
Yeah. So, Anne, I wanted to read a little bit about your background so we can talk a little bit about where you come from, where you're at today. So, Anne joined the TIA from the U.S. Department of Transportation, where she served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary, Congressional Affairs. That's really long.
Wow.
Started her service at the U.S. Department of Transportation in April 2019, initially as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs, and transitioned to Congressional Affairs in November 2019. Prior to her time at the U.S. Department of Transportation.
It's too much, Christy. It's too much.
I'm telling you, Anne spent 16 years at CSX Corporation in their Federal Affairs office. ultimately serving as the Vice President of Government Affairs again, overseeing the federal, state, government, and community affairs departments. So before joining CSX, she worked at the Association of American Railroads and High Speed Ground Transportation Association. Anne is a Washington, D.C. native and graduated from the National Cathedral School. She received a BA from Rice University in Houston, Texas, and a JD from the Wake Forest University School in Law in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. She and her husband, Brett, have 2 sons and reside in Alexandria, Virginia.
Now,
So,
one of my sons gave me a present yesterday, and the other one forgot.
oh no.
So
what did you get?
So what you're trying to say, Christy, is that our guest is a powerhouse. I mean, why don't you just say, I want to introduce a powerhouse?
Yes,
I mean,
she is absolutely a powerhouse. It's mind-boggling reading that, because I'm sitting there thinking, how did
Awesome.
you survive through all of that?
God bless us, right?
That's our first question. How the heck
These
did
were
you do
something.
that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is in all seriousness. So, working at CSX, you know this, Christy, because you deal with them. They're a marvelous company, but sometimes through no fault of their own, things go bump in the night and there's a derailment. That was when you wake up at 3:00 in the morning, because that's when always derailments happen. They come at 3:00 in the morning on Christmas, Thanksgiving, or Super Bowl Sunday. That's when they happen. That's really something where it's like, you get this adrenaline, you know what you have to do. And CSX had it down to a science, which is not great, but it's good that we knew what each other's roles were and and it was because my boss at the time, Ellen Fitzsimmons, she was so aware that as you go through a community, we have an impact on that community for good and for bad. And so you have to be as responsive as you can be to that community when things do go wrong. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. I used to be the Northeast Regional Operations Manager for Snyder Intermodal. I had from Baltimore to Youngstown, Montreal, Halifax, 21 ramps, dealt with CSX. They're a fantastic company at the time. I dealt with Jay Strongowski. Probably know him.
Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
Yep. And as you state, yes, all hell breaks loose when you're sleeping. Always.
Always.
Always. Always.
Yep. Yeah, that's what happened with the Baltimore Bridge. Unfortunately, we all woke up to the news that it happened. So
yeah, for sure.
Facts. So anyways, Anne, you want to talk a little bit about your journey? I know I just read a lot of
good Lord,
wrong words. But just talk a little bit about why you got into what you got into and why you are where you are today. That would be awesome.
Okay. So I went to law school, and a lot of lawyers don't actually want to become lawyers. They go to law school because they think maybe they want to be a lawyer, or because they were like a history and political science major, so they don't know exactly what to do after they graduate, which is what my majors were. So they go to law school. And I am so appreciative of the education that I received, because I do think it makes you think in a very practical way, in a very kind of fact-based way, which ultimately has served me well. But I didn't really want to become a lawyer. And when you think about law, it's really defending your client, right? That's sort of the essence of being a lawyer. And you can do that as a lobbyist. You are, in a sense, advocating for defending your client. So I transitioned kind of the skill set that I learned in law school into advocacy on a different level. I mean, it's really like advocacy, salesmanship, legal. I mean, it's all kind of that same mindset of like, how can I put the best foot forward for my case, for my client, for my cause, whatever it is. And so I did that for a lot of years in railroads. And why railroads? There's really no good reason why railroads. It just sort of, I got this job because my boss at the time thought, oh, she's a lawyer, so she's really smart. It's like, it just conveyed something, even though he had no reason to hire me. So from there, just transitioned into railroads and was there for many, many years and loved it. It was, separate and apart from, things going bump in the night. It's so interesting. It's such a kind of under the radar industry for a lot of people, not for people like you, because you know about it, but not many people don't until they get blocked at a crossing or something like that. Right. And it was just such a worthwhile cause, in my opinion, because it's such a critical infrastructure. Mm-hmm. But things being what they are, there's a lot of corporate stuff that happens, and a lot of corporate stuff happened for CSX. Our whole executive team was taken out by a new team, if you recall, back in 2017, I guess it was. And so that's sort of where my career was like, well, I see all these people going, maybe I'll go too. But I was able to use that experience at U.S. Department of Transportation. I'd never worked for the government before. I'm so glad I had that experience because it allowed me to get to where I am today, a totally different industry. And if I hadn't had that experience, I probably wouldn't be here today. That being said, government bureaucracy is not for the faint of heart. It's not for everybody. So I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I didn't stay.
Looks great on the resume.
It looks great.
Well, and I'm glad that you are where you are today as well, because I think you have done some great things with the TIA since you have come aboard, and it's amazing to see how it's changed quite a bit, for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely have put a lot of work and effort into it, and being a long time member of TIA, and I just think that you've done wonders for the organization. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So starting off, I want to ask you first, what does empowered women or empowering women mean to you, and how do you live it daily?
Sure. So I think there has been a tendency for some women to feel threatened by other women, and to feel like it's a zero-sum game, that if I get something, she can't have it, or she gets something, that I won't get it. And that is not my conception of life. Fortunately, it's not my conception of women and empowering women. I feel like in order to empower us all, we have to come at from a position of plenitude, not scarcity. Like the more we succeed, the more other people succeed, right? The more other women succeed. So how do I live that every day? For me, it's just, how can I find opportunities for people who may not be holding their hands up? Unfortunately, more often than not, it's women who are not holding their hands up. Sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it's women who say, I'm perfect for this job. And that's great. But a lot of times women may not feel like they either have the confidence to put themselves forward, or they feel like they don't have the skill set to put themselves forward, or whatever it is. And so my role is to try to get someone who may be reluctant to participate and to be involved. So Christy knows we have a dynamite group of women on our board, but by and large, we've had to sort of twist arms in order to get some of them, and certainly twist some arms to get them to be part of our executive committee. And it's not because they don't think they're talented. It's maybe they think that, oh gosh, this is intimidating being on a board, or I don't know, I don't have enough time in my day. How can I do that? Right. So I think getting women to say yes more, that's my role in life, is trying to get women to say yes more to opportunity.
I love that you shared that, because when I first had the opportunity to be on the board, obviously the answer was yes, but I was scared and lacked the confidence of, I've never been on a board and really understood what my role was, or how do you do it. And a lot of it was just watching and listening, to be quite honest. For a while, I don't know how much I probably haven't contributed as much as some other women have on the board over the years, but I definitely hear what you're saying there, because I do think there's that confidence issue, especially if you've never done it before too. So I think that that's great that you do that. Can you talk, just to elaborate a little bit, so obviously I know a lot of women within the TIA that actually work for you in the organization or with you. Has there been any problems there, or have you, do you find that those women already have the confidence, they don't maybe need your help as much trying to find their voice?
Gosh, that's challenging. And all the people who work for me, Christy and Jeff, you probably know some of them too. They are all very talented at what they do. And I was blessed. Sort of my conception of leadership, and I think you were going to ask this question, but my conception of leadership is humble leadership, meaning I don't have all the answers and I want to lean on my team to help. Perfect. And I was so blessed when I got on board that all of my team were really, really well versed. They're experts. They know what they're talking about, and they knew how to advise me. Talk about confidence, though, that was an issue, and not because they weren't terrific people. I don't know how empowered they had been prior to me. And I'm not saying I'm the galvanizing force. I think it's just a different approach to leadership. I think the predecessor might have been more top down, and I'm just a little bit more across, right? And that's a function of age. It's a function of the times we're in. It's a function of personality. Maybe it's a function of me not being a micromanager or being lazy. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. So I feel like I've empowered them.
Yeah.
How do you lift up a woman as far as identifying the capabilities that they have without them even knowing it? You know, maybe they know it, but they don't know it, and they're afraid to say it. Like you said, they're not there's many of them that don't raise their hands and say, how about me? So how do you identify that talent that they may not think they have?
Yeah, well, the good news about many of the situations that many of the activities that TIA has is that we get to meet a lot of people. We meet a lot of our members, whether it's at our annual meeting, whether it's at regional meetings. And so I judge that by the kinds of conversations that I have, or if I go to one of my member facilities and I have, where I get to understand what they work through, what they're working on. It's really a good judge of talent, of people who know how to explain the business well, know how to explain their company well, know how to explain the issues that concern them. And so it may be that one interaction doesn't lead to anything for a while. I'm going to give you an example. There's a woman who I met 3 years ago who I've seen a couple times since. I met her at her company office, and now I'm trying to recruit her to be on one of my committees, one of our committees. And why do I want her? Because I was really impressed with her a couple of years back when I saw her present on something in particular. I think the question I asked her was, what keeps you up at night from a business perspective? Not like,
Right.
But, and I was really impressed with how just passionate she was. And so, yes, 2 years later, we're getting to a point. And I think showing that attention, showing my belief in her, showing that she could do it, I think that's a great step to getting that confidence.
Yeah, something that you said without saying it, that's missing, especially in leadership roles, is having the ability to listen with intent. That's like the optimal word, intent. Some people just listen to hear what they want to hear, but when you really dig in and you listen to what your team is doing, it tells you a lot about who's doing what they like, what they dislike, which enables you as a leader to take a hold of that and saying, you know what, I can give something more to this individual. I know they can do it from what I heard. Would you say that is a key element of leadership, is to listen with intent?
Yeah, we all read this stuff on LinkedIn where there's these sort of leadership parables, and then it makes us all feel inadequate. But what I do sort of focus on is they talk about how leaders really need to understand their team and really need to understand what motivates them. And I think it's critical, but I also think it's important to see maybe what's holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
And how you can potentially put them forward, because there's sometimes where they haven't, maybe the people just haven't paid attention to them, or they don't have the time to pay attention to, ways to progress their career because they're just focused on the day-to-day, just getting their job done,
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the person that you were talking about, do you find that, like, the reason being why you're after this person too, and like why maybe they're reluctant because they don't have the time, or they don't feel like maybe they have something to give that's beneficial, to the committee?
Well, in this particular case, I'm going to find out on Friday. But
There we go.
in the past, when I've talked to various women about potentially elevating their role, most of the time it's, I don't think I have the time to commit. And here is and I'm not going to be gender biased because I'm married to a man and I have 2 sons. The only female I have is my dog. But I do think that women are more apt to think, do I actually have the time to give this commitment? Whereas men are like, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Sure, I'll do it.
Right? I can fit that in. And women are for whatever reason, maybe they limit themselves. Maybe because women do multitask a little bit better than men. Maybe they just feel like I can't add another thing to my schedule. But that's what I've noticed the most.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't disagree with that for sure. I feel like I'm probably the males that you're talking about where I say yes to everything and I don't have the time. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get it done. But I wasn't always like that. Early on, I was not, I probably had some time, but I was more afraid, to be quite honest, to actually put myself out there. And like, what? I don't know enough to talk about this. Why pick me? But I forced myself to do it. So
Challenge is good.
yeah.
Challenge is so good, to be uncomfortable every single day and to learn every single day. That's another problem. If you're not learning every day, and you heard me say it a billion times, you're not going to move forward, because the industry is moving a lot quicker now than it ever has in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about too is you already talked about, the people on the board of the TIA in particular, or even just the members of TIA. So in this industry as leaders, why do you think diversity is important, and what have you seen come from the diversity that the TIA does have?
I think the more different voices and different experiences that you gather around a table or an industry or what have you, the better the industry gets, the stronger it is. To me, you think about how the industry was 20 years ago, 45 years ago, it's completely different now. It is 100% different. And so the people who did it a certain way, they've had to evolve or they're out.
Yep.
And when you have new people getting in, they think about new ways to do business. I mean, just think about, I'm sure I'm not supposed to name any member companies because they're all beautiful people and I love all of them. But you think about some of the female powerful CEO founders of companies like yourself, who had a wink and a prayer and came up with a fabulous idea because there was a gap or a need that had not been met. I mean, think about that. That would have been unheard of 20 years ago. But because the industry hasn't evolved, because there are these models where they see people like you, oh, if there are people like Chrissy, I can probably try to dip my hand in here, or I have a good idea. Maybe I could do it too. I think that to me is so important. There's so many cool companies that have been started by women who are member companies that are doing something different. And that's because I think our industry, maybe it was a certain way 45 years ago, but it is definitely not that way anymore.
Correct.
So a question, like, has your organization implemented any programs or initiatives to empower women and support women? Obviously, I'm familiar with the Women in Logistics Committee, but you can talk about that, but that aside, because obviously that's with members as well, but like aside from that too, anything else in the organization that you
so we have what's called the nominating committee. So the Women in Logistics is fabulous, and the folks who run it are very imaginative and are wanting to do more than just having a lunch every year. They want to have continual programming that inspires women and connects women to each other. But our nominating committee is in charge of putting together a slate of potential candidates for various office positions. They also assist with the people who throw their name in the hat in terms of a board member. And one of the things that our nominating committee is very mindful of is that we want to have a diverse board. We want to have diversity amongst our committee members. We want to have kind of the best of the best. And not only do we want to have the best of the best today, but we want to start putting together, the sort of grassroots program to get the best of the best, for the future. And, part of that is really getting a diversity of people. So it's not just the same faces that you've seen. It's, getting more women involved in particular. And I'm it was led by Lynn Gravely 2 years ago, who's now our treasurer, but he really put me to task to develop kind of this sort of farm team, but also to really think through, all right, how can we get more diversity? How can we get more people involved so we don't just have the folks who have been palsy-wowsy for years. Not that we don't love the folks who've been palsy-wowsy for years, because I love the folks who've been palsy-wowsy for years, but we also know that they are going to retire at some point, or they're going to get off the board after their term ends. And so who's going to take over for them? And let's make sure that we are mindful of really trying to have a diverse slate.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that you guys do that there. Being on the board in the past, I will say, like, I think that was probably one of the most valuable things in my career to learn from all these other companies, different sizes, men and women, different parts of the industry, because, you know, we are not heavy on the truck side, but hearing the conversations from these companies that are and talking about the issues, not that we don't have some of the same ones, but like to a different scale, I think was very, you know, important, I think, for the TIA to have. And I love that you guys are continuing to do that within your committees, within the company, and on the board for sure.
How is the TIA broken up as far as male and female?
Gosh, I should know that, but I don't know that. I'm going to say 60-40, but that's probably just making stuff up.
I think I would say, like, knowing who I know, like, and I don't know all of them, but I would say you have a fair amount of both genders.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. And some that have been there a very long time as well. And again, like I said, I think having the diverse people within the company that's been there for a long time, and then seeing the different people that have been on the board, or even the committees, you know, for the years that I've done that too, I think is very helpful.
So you looking to turn and burn them? Like, I shouldn't use that term. Every 5 years? Like, if you get onto the board, your term is 3 years, 5 years, etc.
Yes, you have 2 3-year terms, but I will say this. So where it was a sort of ossified, and our executive committee will be the first to say this, was that the executive committee, once you got on it, it would be another 14 years before you got off of it. And our not many people
That's commitment.
want to do that. And it's incredibly understandable. You know, they may be young and filled with vim and vigor 14 years earlier, but by the time they get to be chairman, they're like, just get me off this GD board. I can't take it a second late. So what we did this year, and I don't even know, Christy, if you heard about this, we are now doing 1-year terms for each office holder to cut in half the time that they're on executive committee. And so why is this important? Why does this matter at all? Well, going back to getting women to empower themselves and making sure that they say yes to things, a lot of times you could get resistance from someone who's like, I can't be on something for 14 years, right? And women who are like, I'm just trying to, you know, I have a million other things that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to run a company. I'm trying to get my kids to school. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. There's no way I'm going to be an officer of the TIA for 14 years. No way. So now what we're doing is cutting in half. And I think that will naturally bring new, young, vibrant voices, men and women involved.
Are you going to start like voting these positions in? Like, let's just say a handful of people say, hey, you know what? I'd love to be on the TIA board. Is there like a selection committee or a voting committee that would select these people and put them in those specific positions on the board?
Yeah. So the way it works is that you as a person have to decide, I would like to run for the TIA board. This year, there are 3 vacancies. And so you submit an application and it goes to a vetting process by the nominating committee to make sure that you've met all the requirements. And they're not that many, but they're enough that the nominating committee has to do work. So then they look at that and they say, okay, you guys, you met your requirements. These are going to be the folks on the board. So that's one set. And then you know, the membership votes on them. They have a ballot. It's automatic. It's very cool. If you've never voted, I'm sure Christy has, but it's really, really cool. And it's really, really easy. And so then that the voting population votes and they're announced at our annual meeting. For the officers, it comes up through this kind of hierarchy. It starts at becoming the chair of the TIA Foundation or the TIA Services Board, and then it moves on from there. And that's not something, it's something that has developed over time, sort of a custom and practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too is also to become a member of the board, you have to serve on a committee, correct?
That's right. And so Christy's pointing to one of the requirements is to serve on a committee for at least 1 year so that there's some familiarity with what the TIA does. And Christy was on our board because she chaired a conference, the Intermodal Conference, which is now called the Rail Logistics Conference. And so that's another way to get on the board too, through those kinds of committee assignments.
Yeah, which I think is important because if you don't know anything about it, and I think the committees are great because again, you get a group of people that talk about what's going on. You
Yeah.
also get to hear what's going on from the government side of it,
No.
which is great, and learn a lot more. So,
And you figure out of those meetings and listening, you're going to create as a whole, as a body, best practices that everybody could lean on.
right.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break, Anne, and go to our sponsors.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm going to start it off with, let me get my handy dandy hat. TMS Software simplifies freight management for brokers, offering an all-in-one platform for quoting, booking, and tracking shipments. Learn more at tiesoftware.com.
Brokering, success demands a battle-ready strategy. TIE TMS equips brokers with the ultimate battle station for conquering a tough market. With TIE, brokers gain access to a comprehensive platform where rate intelligence and quote history converge on a single screen. It's not just a page. It's a strategic command center designed to help brokers win. TIE equips your team with all the data they need to negotiate with confidence and allows them to communicate directly with carriers and customers from a simple control base. Revolutionize the way your brokers perform by giving them a competitive advantage with TIE TMS. For more info, scan the QR code or go to tie-software.com/battlestation.
Freight Validate, the ultimate identity and compliance verification system for the logistics industry. Freight Validate empowers shippers, brokers, carriers, and more to ensure compliance and regulations and mitigate fraud risk. With Freight Validate, you can easily verify entities' compliance status and identify potential threats within minutes. Don't risk your business with unverified carriers or brokers. Choose Freight Validate for peace of mind. Learn more at freightvalidate.com and start your verification process today.
Freight Validate, revolutionizing identity and compliance verification for shippers, brokers, and motor carriers with cutting-edge technology. Now, experience the power of voice-activated information retrieval with Siri and Alexa. Hey Siri, check Freight Validate.
Sure, what's the MC number?
387211.
The company Direct Expedite LLC is a broker and is freight validated. Company ownership has completed facial recognition verification. Basic company identity verification, risk assessment, and compliance info has been verified by freightvalidate.com. Please follow company protocols for additional safety and compliance vetting. For more information, please go to freightvalidate.com.
Freight Validate ensures complete access to our state-of-the-art identity and compliance verification system. Speed, accuracy, and savings all in one package. Don't miss out. Upgrade to Freight Validate today. Fraud starts with fraud. It ends with Freight Validate.
And our final sponsor is TAFS Inc., providing transportation factoring solutions to boost profits and increase cash flow for small and medium-sized companies. Contact TAFS at tafs.com to elevate your financial success.
Trucking excellence meets unparalleled service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like our fantastic tire discounts. Need cash fast? Try our 1-hour advances. Plus, we're here for you 365 days a year. Need loads? We have a pro dispatch service. This is why TAFS was recognized as the top factoring company in 2023. You'll benefit from strategic partnerships for enhanced operations. Access business loans and manage your finances easily with our client portal, F2 Fuel Card, and mobile app. At TAFS Factoring, we're more than just a factoring company. We're your partner in success. Contact us today to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
Awesome sponsors.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that they came on board and supporting our narrative and helping this show move forward. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, welcome back. And I'm going to get right into it with Anne again. I want to talk to you a little bit about mentorship in supporting women's career growth. If you have had any mentors in your past that have helped you along the way, and is there anything that you're doing today or, at TIA that, anyone within the organization is doing any kind of mentoring?
Yeah, I have benefited throughout my career from mentors, both men and women. And I don't know, honestly, where I would be without them. I think I would be a terrible employee. We had formalized programs for it at one of my at CSX, but I also had this sort of informal mentorship. And here, I think I've said this story before, but it really stuck with me. So when I was working at CSX, I had a child. I had two children, as a matter of fact. But the first one, it was challenging, to come back to work and you don't know what you're doing and you're missing your baby and all this stuff. And one of the projects that I had been working on before I had left for maternity leave was taken over by somebody else. And boy, oh boy, did I have a bad attitude. Now I had a bad attitude anyway, because I was just coming back from work and I did, whatever, you're like exhausted and you feel like a prisoner of war. But I remember the guy who was my boss at the time, has now become a dear friend, saying to me, you know what? At a certain point, your coworkers don't want to hear your complaining anymore. You need to go home and kick the dog. Now, what did he mean? Did he mean like actually go home and kick your dog down?
You didn't do that.
I have a very sweet dog. I don't want to kick her. But the point was, at a certain point, you got to put up and shut up and just do your job. You're not going to get every advantage. You're not going to get every opportunity, but you just got to keep working. And if you truly are doing your best work, it will get recognized. And by the way, no one really wants to hear it after a while. Maybe they do for a little bit, but after a while, they just want you to get over it. So I think to me, had I not had that lesson, that could have infected me or for the rest of my life and could have curtailed any opportunities that I have for the future. So to me, that was great advice, unsolicited, but fabulous. And I'm so grateful for him. For me, what I decided years ago, and I practiced this actually last week, is if somebody calls me or emails me, and a woman, it could be actually a man too, but typically it's women who do this. They'll say, I would really love to talk about your career. I'm at a crossroads. I don't know what to do. And I just need some help. I always say yes, because who knows what lessons I could convey, or who knows what kind of experience they have that could ultimately be helpful for me, for them. What you just don't know. It could be a throwaway phrase that doesn't mean anything to me. Like my boss saying kick the dog probably didn't mean anything to him, but it sure meant something to me. But my point is, I have made it a goal in my life. I have to help that person who has at least the wherewithal to ask for help. I definitely want to provide help if I can.
Yeah, and that's something I've done for a long time, because I think I spoke a lot about the fact that I didn't really have mentors, or I talked about my dad being a mentor, but he taught me what not to do more than what to do. So that's definitely been an interesting aspect of my career. But I agree with you 100%. I think it's very important to have mentors. Sometimes they keep you in line too,
Absolutely.
like you just said, kick your dog, kick your cat, whatever, But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's great that you do that. And I think I feel the same way. And I feel like it wasn't always like that though, back in the day. Maybe in the last 5 years, I would say it's been more welcoming to call someone up, because I remember I had Nicole Glenn, who actually contacted me 5 years ago and specifically asked, some questions. And she was so grateful because she felt like she couldn't find anyone that was willing to give their time to even talk. And I just think it's important, because not only are you helping someone else, but you learn a lot yourself too from that person.
Yeah. A follow-up question is, besides having a child, multitasking and juggling as a mom, what do you think was the biggest obstacle that you had to break through or jump over to get to where you are?
Well, this is going to sound silly, but I don't play golf. I'm not kidding. And look, I don't begrudge anyone who's got talent at golf, because I think it's a fun game if you're good at it, right? I don't happen to be good at it, but it's more emblematic of being part of something that it's very male dominated and where a lot of business gets done. I couldn't compete. And so you have to kind of figure out a different way to compete, because I couldn't get in there. And believe me, I guess if I really set my mind to it, I could be mediocre, because I'm never going to be good at golf. I just won't. But I just, there's only so many hours of the day. One other thing that occurs to me, when I was a lobbyist at CSX, the members of Congress have always had their iterations of being great people and terrible people.
Sure.
There was a period of time where there were enough scandals between lobbyists and married members of Congress. Unfortunately, that still continues today. But
no,
believe it. And at the time, I know it's unbelievable. At the time, the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, who I have tremendous respect for, said essentially, if you're a male member of Congress and you're married, do not have any alone time with a female lobbyist. Now, I get what he was saying, right? He's trying to avoid compromising positions, but that makes a female lobbyist who doesn't have any intention of doing anything with those numbnuts. It makes the job that much harder. Sure. And so how do you counteract that? Well, yeah, you have breakfast, or you bring people with you. I mean, it's just, you sort of feel like, all right, I can't change the world. All I can do is try to operate it the best way I know how, which is, all right, I'm still going to do my job. I'm not going to not do my job, but I guess what I'll do is I'll make sure that it looks great and we're still meeting and it doesn't look untoward, and right. I mean, that's all you can do.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because it's so important, right? So I would think that, when you're dealing with congressional leaders and you need to have those one-on-ones where other people are not invited and they know what's going on. How do you get through that if the other side is a male and you're a female and they're telling you don't put yourself in a compromising position, but you need to have that chat?
I think the answer is different for everyone. I really do. And I think there are enough women who are powerful in their own right.
Yeah.
That male members of Congress know you got to meet with this person. That I tend to think that there's going to be a staffer there, though. I just do, just recognizing the reality of it. There's always going to be someone else in the room.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. And I would say in the logistics industry, being 19 when I started, and maybe a little naive, I had some challenges myself, I think, where you could easily be turned away because it's like, is this, what it's like being male dominated, and being the only woman in a room can be very intimidating at times. Obviously, a lot of that has changed, not so much on the railroad side, because I'm still probably one of two women on that side, maybe a couple from the railroad now, which was like unheard of back in the day. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I don't think it's just our industry either.
No.
I think it's all industries.
It's all industries, yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it's how you carry yourself. Like you said, there's different answer depending on the person. So,
and it's unfortunate that we have to have this conversation in this day and time when you really think about it, with everything that's been going over the last decades. And of course it's gotten better. I mean, no doubt about it, but we still have to talk about it. I mean, seriously, it's terrible.
So, Anne, with you being the phenomenal leader that you are, why do you think logistics is a good industry for women to explore? And to second that, like, what qualities do you feel make a great female leader?
Why do I think the industry is so positive for women? Because I think there's not just one roadmap. There are so many different kinds of businesses, and there's so many different ways to do your business. Look, I love the railroads, believe me, but there's only one way to do business, right? There just is. And again, I love them, but they've been around since 1820 and they're doing things a certain way. But the logistics industry, it's just that much more diffuse, that much more open. And I think that benefits women because there's a lot more flexibility. they don't have to do a certain thing where they have to be there at 8 and they have to leave at 10 or whatever it is. There's ways to do your business that makes it a lot easier, I think, for somebody who has a family, who is trying to balance a lot of things. I just think that it's a really positive advantage for anyone who wants to be in the logistics industry, but I do think that that's helpful for women. What do I think are positive leadership skills? Well, look, for everybody, men and women, I think having recognizing that it's not about you anymore, it's about your team and how to best to lead your team. That's a lesson that I learned. Again, it did not come naturally to me. I had to be taught that. But it isn't about you anymore. You've got to develop your team and you got to figure out how to make your team work the best way that they can. That's important. For women, I think having again, I don't want to be gender biased. I do think that women tend to be a little bit more pragmatic and sort of not and more open to like flexible solutions. And again, I'm sure a man's going to listen to me like, I'm flexible and I'm pragmatic too. Like, yes, of course you are. But my point is, if you're looking at a spectrum, I think women are a little bit more flexible and less tied to the way things have been done in the past.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we talk about too is I think women were just born with the natural skill of being able to multitask and handle a lot of different things thrown their way, which I think just makes it different. Not that men can't do it. We talk about that a lot. But it's, again, I think those are some skill sets that women definitely have better, I should say, maybe than some men do. And I guess with, what you just talked about too, are there any emerging trends or innovations in the logistics sector that you believe present new opportunities for women to excel and make significant contributions? Specifically, just because there's so much more tech out there too.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the things you're hearing out there because of the leaders you work with as well?
Yeah, I was going to say that exactly, Christy. The amount of new entrants into this space from a technology side is remarkable.
Yeah.
And the amount of cool people with cool shoes and like great haircuts and slim suits, both female and male, who have come into the business, again, is also remarkable. I think when I think about trends, that to me is having a nascent germ of a great idea, getting some financial backing from somebody in Silicon Valley, and then making it happen. That to me is the sort of trend that I'm seeing now. We're still a little bit in a freight dip, although ultimately I think we're getting our way out of it. But that's the time now where cross fingers, these new entrants are trying to essentially make the space even more efficient and more attractive for shippers to use. So that to me is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Well, we're coming to the end of this show, Anne. We truly appreciate you. Yes. We truly appreciate you being a guest on our show. So thank you all for joining us on today's episode of the Storytelling Chronicles, Empowering Women into Logistics. It's been truly an insightful conversation with Anne, delving into crucial aspects of the gender diversity inclusion within the logistics industry. Stay connected with Anne Reinke for ongoing insights and discussions by following her on LinkedIn and keeping up with updates on the TIA via LinkedIn as well. Lastly, a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors, Freight Validate, TAFS, and TIE Software for their invaluable support in making this podcast possible.
Yes, thank you so much, Anne, for joining us. We hope that you'll come back on a future date to join us to continue this conversation, because it's not over yet and we have plenty to discuss, and I think that you would agree.
Well, I would like to know next time how you guys met and how you married each other into this podcast. And I want to know all of that. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to ask questions.
Well, he can tell you a little bit about that now. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. I had my own podcast. I started it over a year ago. And in the beginning of last year, I was talking about empowering women into logistics with my other co-host at the time. And it was only a short gig. It went maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and we spoke to many different women. And I said, something, this topic is so damn important. We need to really expose it for what it is, get more people involved, especially men, to help push the narrative forward. And then I found Christy, and I made a phone call and I said, hey, in short, you want to be my co-host? And what she said before, she's like a man. Yes, yes, yes. I'll do whatever it takes, you know.
He doesn't know the
And
word
that-
no.
yeah. And sure enough, she jumped on the train, and we're in our 13th episode. We have so
Yeah,
much more to
that's
go.
awesome.
I mean, we talk about it all the time, and we want to get people just like yourself on, you know, who've been in the industry for a long time, seen a lot of things out there that can really help coach, mentor, and level up the next generation, or women that are in the business already that needs a little push, a little lift. And I appreciate everything that you spoke about today, Anne. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and with that being said, I forgot to ask you, what piece of advice would you leave for our viewers?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't say kick the dog because I already said that.
Kick the husband. No, I'm just
Yeah, kick the husband. No, don't do that either. No. I would say this: if you don't think you can do it, there's probably someone who can help you do it, and never be afraid to ask. Right?
Yep. Awesome. Well, we appreciate the advice and we appreciate your time today.
Everybody, make sure that you tune in to Christy and myself on the Storytelling Chronicles, Life Lessons and Logistics, Empowering Women into Logistics, every Monday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will see you next week on the 20th, right? Yeah, on the 20th. So with that said, have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Take care now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.